Hello there. Welcome back to our recap series of our journey to episode 9. We are closing out the original trilogy with Return of the Jedi. It's kind of bittersweet that the original trilogy is coming to an end. Luckily for me, it's my favorite Star Wars movie, so um, this one we'll do our 6 takeaways from Return of the Jedi. So, Robin, your 6 takeaways from Return of the Jedi.
6 takeaways from Return of the Jedi. All right, so number 6 for me, I think has to be Jabba's palace as a whole. Again, this is like the first time that we ever see, I think, and actually realistically within the original trilogy, like where all of these bounty hunters are gathered. Basically the minions of Jabba are there. You see basically the gangster slum side of Star Wars in that moment. And when you walk in there, of course, you have Luke going in to confront Jabba for the life of Han Solo in particular. And you have Boba Fett there and Salacious Crumb, and then Jedi Rocks, of course. I mean, who can live? I can't live without Jedi Rocks. That's just how
I
it is.
can live without it.
Sean, can
I
you live
can't.
without it?
No,
Thank
I
you.
can't.
Thank you. Makes me such a happy
Uh,
person. Andrew is canceling our Rise of Skywalker tickets.
unpopular opinion is better than Cantina Band.
Get off that phone right now, Andrew.
Cancel, Robert. No, I wouldn't do that because with how it works on the apps, is
Oh
it
yeah.
cancels out all the tickets, so it's like I'd have to rebuy them.
Ooh, yeah,
So
no, no.
yeah,
On
I'm
that well.
Good
stuck
luck
with
with
you
that.
guys anyway.
He's
So
stuck. He's stuck with it. So yeah, Jabba's palace at number 6. Number 5 is the Rancor scene for me. This is like really our first time, and I remember reading within there was I can't remember what it was. It was a documentary series that looked at, I don't know if it was Elstree 1975. It was the series about all the behind the scenes actors that worked on Star Wars in particular, the first one in particular. But there was a part of it that, and they discussed the Rancor scene and how many individuals it took to actually move the Rancor in that scene, and they didn't have the full body constructed. It was only a partial, like only the front of it was actually constructed, and there was somebody who had to move the legs and everything else. And just the casting of creating that creature, it was really the first time again. I mean, other than of course, you know, in the other creatures that we've seen in the original trilogy on such a large scale, I have to say. Maybe the only other one was the Wampa itself in Empire Strikes Back. So that really stood out for me in terms of the creature effects and the creature workshop on Star Wars. That was a great scene. Number 4 for me is when I have to admit it's a really cool moment for me. Is when Boushh Leia comes in. All this is really happening on Tatooine at the beginning. I just love that entire sequence from Jabba's palace. But Boushh Leia comes, frees Han Solo, and he's like, he's trying to gain his senses, and he's like, she says, who are you? And she's like, someone who loves you, and takes off the helmet and then kisses him.
what if he said Kira?
Oh, now if he said another lady's name, that would have been a whole other thing.
Yeah,
That would have been a whole other.
She would have left him.
She would have just dropped him and taken off, and then the George Lucas dun 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 just would have came right there. But yeah, that was a really great moment. I think the reuniting of Leia and Han, knowing everything that they had been through at that point, that she's still even wanting to rescue him and not leave him behind. She really does care for him, and for the sake of Luke as well in their relationship. Number 3 for me. Oh man, it's Luke versus Vader, guys. For me, I just think even just the beginning of that, when he first arrives and you hear the discussion between Luke and Palpatine basically sassing each other back. I mean, that's literally what's going on. One saying the other, like, if you can't do it, then I can do it better. Like that kind of thing, just back and forth. And Vader's just standing there like, did I freaking raise this kid? Like, no, obviously, thank God I didn't. You know, so
No, he would have been worse if that was the case.
but you can kind of see where that Anakin
Yeah.
Skywalker is in Luke. You see it. He's being so
Mm.
defiant to the Emperor, like he was to Obi-Wan at time, like Anakin was to Obi-Wan. There's that defiancy
But
is
the
there.
Emperor was pretty quick to like rebuttal.
Oh, super quick. Super.
He shut him down quicker than most teachers shut down students.
Yes. And that's exactly. And that's what Vader noticed so much was that boy. And that's what he said at one point. It's impossible to resist. You know, that reality came to his mind. And then of course number 2 spinning into that is finally when they get into battle. There's just so much. If I can't turn you, then maybe I can turn your sister. You have a sister.
I
Like
always
that
liked the way he said sister.
Oh, just James Earl Jones with that. It's just absolutely fantastic because you can just see it's a very different Luke at that point. It's it's the dark side of Luke actually awakens,
Yeah.
which is absolutely fantastic. And you just see when he attacks Vader, the music changes. John's score for that is just
That's usually
amazing.
my favorite bit of music for any duel.
Oh,
It's very simple, but it has so much weight to it.
oh, it's like
And
Luke mixed with the Emperors.
Mhm.
It's so different
So
and it's
true.
so unique. It's now that we talk about it. Remember when we made our predictions on Words of the Wills in particular about what we would like to hear for a score? That would be an
That would-
amazing score to hear.
imagine if it is if they fight Palpatine in Rise of Skywalker, that's the music they use. Like if Kylo and Rey team up there.
Oh, if Ben Solo goes
to
after the
fight.
Emperor.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mm.
just something along that Skywalker bloodline would be absolutely amazing. And then, of course, number 1 for me, my number 1 favorite is when Lando comes shooting out of the Death Star and he goes Yahoo, and then the Falcon takes off.
No,
It's
he says yee.
Yeehaw, Yahoo, whatever. Yeehaw.
No, he just says he just yeets it. Yeets.
Somebody should have said that to Billy on the
No,
carpet.
no, that's what Vader does when Luke gets the high ground. He yeets his lightsaber.
Somebody should edit Billy like when he comes flying, he just goes yeet, just takes off everything. So yeah, I think that it's like
he's gonna say it in Rise of Skywalker when the Falcon takes off. He's gonna go yeet.
it would be absolutely amazing. Be absolutely amazing. But in that moment, it's like that sense of relief comes over you. It's like they finally fucking did it, and that's really like him saying that is like okay. That's where the movie ends. That's legitimately where the Empire ends and the movie ends. And then we get, of course, the whole Ewok scene, the celebration on Endor, which is awesome as well. Because now we know in the canon so much happens that night. So much happens. You know, not just with Han and Leia, but there's Shara Bay and Poe Dameron's father.
Yeah.
Poe Dameron is conceived on that night as well.
Yeah.
So there's so much that happens.
So Ben Solo and Poe Dameron are pretty
Around
much the same. Are the same age.
Legitimately are the same age. Their connection is much deeper than we think.
Adam Driver and Oscar Isaac are about the same age too.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, they are.
Adam Driver's, I think he's 37. Oscar is like either 36 or 37. So they're pretty close in age.
But yeah, fact check that. Check that.
That is what I'm doing.
And it's just, I think that those connections go really deep into the canon.
Adam Driver is 36.
Oh, 36.
Yep.
Maybe Oscar Isaac's 37 then, or 38.
Oscar Isaac. He is 40 years old.
Wow. So okay. So they're still within.
Still close.
Not too far apart.
Not too far apart at all. So and he doesn't look like he's 40 at all.
No.
That's why I said he looks like he's in his early 30s.
Yeah. So those are my 6 moments. I think there's a lot of ones in there. A lot of it takes place on Jabba's barge, though, because it's so different and it's so unique to that film.
Yeah. Now, question for the both of you. The original color of the lightsaber was supposed to be blue. Would you have liked it to have stayed blue, or do you like the green for Luke's second lightsaber?
Oh, the green stands out so much.
I agree. Green.
I think it would have been too repetitive if it was just blue again.
Yeah.
And at that point, it introduced the third color for a lightsaber.
Yeah.
So I as much as I do like the blue, the green is a pretty iconic color for Luke. But Sean,
Yeah.
your 6 takeaways from Return of the
Okay.
Jedi.
For mine, for number 6 for me, I think it's kind of a little funny one. It's more of the Ewok scene when they're taking down the AT
Oh yeah,
and
that's a cool.
Endor.
Yeah.
I think it's a little, it's different what we've seen in the whole trilogy, because I think it's just a little like the Ewoks are like different, like a different thing what George Lucas did
Yeah, they're very
for
different.
the movie. And I don't know. I always loved the Ewoks as a kid, so it's like
Yeah.
because they're like to me when it's like miniature Wookiees, but not.
No, yeah,
They
it's a good
pretty
way of
much
putting it.
were. The reason why they didn't use
Yeah,
Wookiees is because of the holiday special.
Darn holiday
we,
special.
we don't talk about that here.
John
yes, we do.
Favreau talks about it.
Of course we talk about the holiday special. Of course we do, Sean. What are you talking about?
I don't like the holiday special. I'm sorry.
All right, Sean, number 5. What do you got?
Number 5. It's also going to be the Rancor scene as well. I think it's so cool to see. I think it's like you said, it's different. I mean the like you said, like behind of the scenes doing it, it's like so cool to see it. Like how much effort they put in to do those like different creatures, even to that scale of how big it was.
Go ahead, open up a crack a can on the live mic next time there, Andrew.
Yes, thank you, Andrew.
Sorry.
Number 4 is kind of.
No, it's not.
4, yes. For me, it has to be the scene with Darth Vader and Luke. The fighting scene, I think, is one of my favorite fighting scenes. Between them, I think it's so it's so iconic. I mean,
It really is.
To me, it's more iconic than the Bespin duel.
Oh, of course it is. I mean, when everyone thinks of a lightsaber fight, they think of that scene alone, and people try to recreate it.
I mean, they pretty much did it for Rise of Skywalker, just it's Rey and Kylo.
Yeah, and I'm
they're
pretty
in
sure
the throne room there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're gonna. JJ's gonna put some elements into that fight with Kylo and Rey, and especially using the music into it. I mean, that would be sweet.
That would be.
Number 3 for me, honestly, is a little sad one. It's more of Yoda's death scene when Yoda dies.
That's a good one. I haven't heard that one much.
Because I think it's the end of, not the end, but saying the final goodbyes to one of the greatest Jedis, and
he's an okay Jedi.
Yeah, he's okay.
Let Sean finish, Andrew.
Yeah, you do this every time, Andrew.
I'm leaving my comment to myself.
Anyways, to me, one of the greatest Jedis.
It's already open, so it doesn't work that way, Robin.
Yeah. Jesus.
Number 2.
Was that number 3? 2?
Yeah.
Whatever.
2.
Number 2 is the scene with Leia and Han when she tells Han that Lucas is her brother. I think it's so cool. Just like there's a little chuckle for Han. It's like Han's like,
wait, you kiss your brother.
Right?
Yeah, that reality set in pretty quick.
Luke's reaction was a little bit more funny for me.
I think it's just a little sweet And for number one, probably has to be the ending with the Force Ghosts with Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda. And the question for you guys: do you like the re-release with Hayden Christensen, or do you like the original?
That's the question.
I
I
honestly,
prefer the Anakin. I mean, with Hayden, I think it fits well with the prequels. But
personally, because I grew up with Hayden's Anakin, I prefer it. Like, yes, I know those love Sebastian Shaw as Anakin, but George said the last time Anakin Skywalker was the Hayden Christensen look. And it's gone into other details that the Force Ghosts can appear however they want. So Anakin's going to show up as his better looking self. So
of course he is. Of course he is.
Of course he is.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same camp. I have to go with probably what your perspective is too, Andrew and Sean, that the Hayden Christensen Anakin is the one that I grew up with the prequels. That was my Star Wars at the time. That was most of our Star Wars at the time. That's the Anakin Skywalker that we know the most. I don't think necessarily he wants to go with the slightly older Anakin. It looks like there might be some Rogaine necessary for that and whatever else. So I like Hayden Christensen Anakin as the Force Ghost. It just makes sense. And if we're going to see that in the Rise of Skywalker, which we'll get on into later in this recap, that will play a major effect.
Yeah, I agree. But for my 6 takeaways, 6, it would be Vader's arrival to the second Death Star.
Ooh.
I've always liked the presence of Vader in that moment. Granted, they used a different shot of that for Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
When the ship's supposedly entering the Super Star Destroyer, but it's really the Death Star because you can see the commander. So it's wait.
How does that work?
But just the way it's shot, how it shows the commander and it shows the ramp slowly coming down. And again, the Return of the Jedi suit for Vader's is my personal favorite. It just has a better shine and it just looks so much better. 5 is the Rancor scene because it shows how much Luke has grown with his abilities.
That's true.
And it shows how confident he is. Granted, yes, Luke had different plans for how to get Han out of there. D was his best plan, which was just get his lightsaber and kill everyone. But he had a
nice plan.
He had A, try and get C-3PO and R2-D2 to bargain. B, Leia goes in to get him. C, Luke goes to negotiate by himself, shoot Jabba in the face if he has to. And then 4, or D, just kill everyone.
Basically like the Anakin route.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's basically who wants to be a millionaire, basically.
Yeah.
Who wants to be?
But just the music for that, you feel that Luke is in danger a lot more than he normally is.
That's a good point.
Because we hadn't seen a Rancor before.
Right.
And personally, Return of the Jedi, there's more at stake with this film than any of the other ones, in my opinion.
Very true.
Because Luke is the most vulnerable to turning to the dark side in this movie. The Emperor is a very serious threat in this. The Death Star. Granted, it could be a rehash, but George always planned to have the Death Star at the end of Star Wars anyway. But he didn't plan it to be a trilogy, so he had to make a second one. 4 would be Luke's arrival at Jabba's palace. Just him in the black cloak, kind of reminiscent of Anakin's entering into the Jedi Temple. Kind of the reverse of that, just Luke's by himself, and he force chokes two Gamorrean guards, and
Right, right.
you know,
Mm.
that's where I'm like, he's teetering more towards the light and dark side more than he ever has in any other movies. And how different of a person Luke is in this, because before he's whining and not really believing in the Force,
Sure.
here he's full-fledged Jedi. He's calm,
Yes,
collected. He knows what he's doing for the most part, besides trying to shoot Jabba in the face.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
3 is Luke returning to Yoda's home, and I always like his returning to Dagobah better than his training in Empire Strikes Back, because he's more calm and he's comfortable in
Yes.
Yoda's hut. And Yoda is, besides Luke, you could kind of say he doesn't die from a battle, but he kind of does. Yoda is the only Star Wars character to die of old age.
Yeah.
To be confirmed so far.
Yes.
We still
2,
don't know Dexter Jetster, how he passed away.
did he pass away though? He could still be alive.
He could still be running that.
I mean,
Okay. He could be still running Dex's Diner. That's a good point.
it could be a huge restaurant now.
Yeah.
2
He's got a franchise.
is
Or
the 2 is the throne room scene where Luke and Vader, Vader brings Luke to the Emperor.
Yeah.
And similar to you, the back and forth between Luke and the Emperor, how Luke feels he's more confident, saying your overconfidence is your weakness.
Right.
Palpatine is like, hey, your faith in your friends is your weakness. So
You little fuck.
pretty
That's
much,
basically what he
that's
said.
pretty much what he said. Just the way he turned around, he was like, you little fuck.
You little Stop back talking me.
And then the end, number 1 for me is the redemption of Anakin Skywalker. Now, because of the re-edit, they added Vader saying no. What
Interesting.
do you guys prefer, the silence of Vader redeeming himself, or do you not mind him saying no and then going into throwing the Emperor down the pit?
I don't mind, but I rather prefer the silence. It's because the more I feel like it's more emotional and more telling to his character.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the one aspect of Vader that I really never wanted is to relive that moment in Revenge of the Sith when he went, no.
It was cheap.
It was cheap, and I think that one of the best parts was in the Vader comic in particular when he did it, and then this is canon, folks. If you haven't read the comic, please go do. But in that moment, Palpatine starts shooting Force lightning at him in that moment after Revenge of the Sith, and basically is saying, "Do not act out that way. Do not feel that kind of compassion. She is gone. You have come back to life. In this case, I've given you a second chance. Don't you dare." Like very much with Luke, don't you dare backsass me and think that you're gonna have compassion. Don't you dare do that. And it's one of those scenes that if I didn't have it, I would just want to know more about the psyche of Vader in that moment. Is that the transition? Is Anakin coming back in that moment? Is the good within him starting to show and say, which obviously it is, but you almost want to leave that for hypothesizing. You don't really need the no at that point.
I can understand that. Me, I don't mind it. I love the silence of Vader just doing it, but it doesn't take me out of it with him saying no. I know a lot of people have an issue with it, but
yeah, I don't have an issue.
The way I see it is when he was Anakin, the last time he said, besides being put in the suit, the last time he said no was when everything went wrong. This time it's doing what's right and saving his son.
It's a redemption.
Yeah, it is.
Redemption.
Now, question for the both of you, because I've asked my cousin this. Return of the Jedi, the title itself, what is it referring to? Is it referring to the Jedi Order coming back or Anakin Skywalker?
Wow, I mean that's a really good question, and I actually thought about this last night after talking with the Rebel Scum podcast guys, um, because I thought more and more about the title that we have for the Rise of Skywalker, and Return of the Jedi could mean many things. It could mean Luke is returning to go and try to redeem Vader. It's
Just
the
like The
return.
Last Jedi has different meanings too.
Yes, exactly. Return of the Jedi could also mean Vader's redemption. That side of him is returning. The Anakin Skywalker that always resided in him before he really switched over and really focused in on the darkness within him. That would really show a return to, not necessarily return of the Jedi, but return of that mindset and that focus on redemption.
Return to his true self.
To his true self. That's a great way.
That's what I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I feel like it's more of to Vader than the Jedi itself.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it feels like it's more towards him, the movie, more towards him,
right.
And that's what I think.
I can see that. I do think it's mainly about Anakin, but it could also be the Jedi Order itself coming back, or even Luke becoming a Jedi Knight. Now, did you guys read the What If comic? Because there's a What If comic if Vader went with Luke in that section when Luke says, "Come with me," and the Emperor actually escapes from that. And there's a cool moment where they're like, the Emperor escaped, we don't know where he went. The doors open, Vader comes out in a new suit, a white suit, and he goes, "I know where he went. Me and Luke and I will go and find him." And then that was the end of the comic.
It's pretty cool.
And it's a really cool what if, like, if Vader went with Luke, how would he be accepted into the rebellion? How would that like change and everything like that? What do you guys think?
Wow. I mean, I always see it as very similar to what we may see in the Rise of Skywalker, is how is Ben Solo going to redeem himself if that's the path he's going to go down. And actually, another fan had posted it on Twitter itself. Is like, you know what? It's always more than just trying to redeem yourself. It's the act of actually trying to show that you can do good, that you can redeem yourself, not necessarily by saying that you want to redeem yourself, by doing acts that show that. And I think by Vader doing that in the what if scenario is him acting upon the redemption, not necessarily accepting the redemption. He knows he has to do this. So I think it's an absolutely fascinating concept, and I would not be surprised if that's something like the What If comics and everything have been taken into consideration when it comes to the canon nowadays. Because I think the redemption factor doesn't just follow the Skywalker saga. I think it's in everything that we've seen up to this point. The Mandalorian has already shown us little aspects of redemption within our main character, where he's trying to redeem himself and what he stands for individually, not necessarily what the clan wants him to do, which is so fascinating. And I'm glad you bring that question up, Andrew, and talk about the What If comics, because I think we're in a new age of Star Wars where, you know what, that kind of stuff, it's going to be a discussion that we're going to have and could become a reality.
Yeah, I feel like it matters for every character that's created for that type of, not redemption, but more of trying to be a better person. Or some people like that, especially us in the real world, where everyone's trying to be better, but not everyone succeeds. And I feel like,
of course, yeah.
Unfortunately, not. But
I know.
No,
seriously.
And I feel like, personally, I feel like Vader has more of a redemption than Kylo Ren.
Oh yeah,
Kylo Ren, in my opinion, even Adam Driver says this, what needs to be redeemed. What he thinks he is doing the right thing, and
Right.
he doesn't feel he needs redemption or anything like that.
Yeah, this is interesting. It's food for thought for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But so granted, we did our top 6, but what did you guys think of the um, reveal of Leia being Luke's sister and everything like that?
Well, the way that it was done is specifically in Return of the Jedi. Yeah, no, it's it's interesting because they probably could have done it much earlier on in the film. It's fascinating that they waited basically till the end of the
Yeah.
film to show that moment. I think that the timing was fascinating, and it's typical George Lucas style. It's like it does exist there. You know that
Mm.
this is going to have to become a main topic of conversation amongst Leia, Luke, and Han at some point. And if they're able to show it to us in a way that has the most impact, then go about it that way. And that's what George did. He had that moment where Leia and Han were together on Endor, everything else is exploding and everybody's celebrating, and he has that moment to there say, oh yeah, I'll leave room for you and Luke. I get it. I get that you guys need your space. You're worried about him. And then she just kind of looks at him and is like, dude, you don't get it. You don't get it. He's my brother. And it's really in many ways, Sean. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts on it are.
Mhm.
But it's almost kind of magical because then you see what happens in Force Awakens when they come back together again.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, I would actually prefer to have the reveal during The Empire Strikes Back, have it at the end. I feel like
Yeah.
that would work more, or
Yeah.
or early towards in the beginning of Return of the Jedi.
Right.
I think it would be great for the fans to find out early instead of wait so late. But it's interesting
Right.
to show that,
Hmm.
especially seeing, like you said, seeing them again in the Force Awakens and
Yeah.
the Last Jedi.
Yeah, it was a really cool place for it, and I think in terms of just the way that Return of the Jedi was outlined, we talk about the score and everything, and I know that's been kind of one of our main conversations that we have when it comes to reliving the original trilogy and the prequels, and specific is where music is placed. And I love in that moment that there's really nothing going on. There's really no music. There's celebration happening, but then the music is kind of brought down so that they can have that moment for them to explain what's going
It
on with
was
each other.
because I felt like more of a real moment
Yeah,
than
it
just
was.
adding music. I mean, because in reality, you don't hear music when you're in a deep
No.
conversation with someone. I think it plays for more of a realism part of the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, and that's like kind of with the make it or break it for me when it comes into the Rise of Skywalker, when we're talking about it's specifically for me, the make it for this film is like if you're going to have those interpersonal relationships and those one-to-one conversations. I think the one thing about Force Awakens, when Han and Leia were talking about Ben Solo in particular, I don't know if I necessarily needed music in that moment. I feel like
Yeah.
just having them sit there with the sounds of the war room behind them kind of playing, them talking about their son, would have been absolutely fascinating. It adds an
I
extra
feel like
level to it, but it would
they
have been
should have
interesting to see.
they should also have done it during with Luke and Leia and the Last Jedi with no music towards the end. I
Well,
feel like
yeah,
that would.
and that was a hard one because that music played such a major role
I
in
mean, it
that
did. I mean,
conversation, but
it didn't
it
feel
was
real to
quiet
me.
though. It wasn't loud music, Sean. You remember sitting there with me. That in that moment when Luke walks in, everybody was like glued to their seats, eyes like affixed to the screen, like, whoa, this is super powerful. This entire moment that's happening. And the music was perfect. It wasn't loud, but it was right at the tone where it was kind of teasing you, like this is the emotions are building in this moment, which is great.
Mhm.
Maybe I thought there was music and it just went over me, but it didn't. There's no music.
Yeah, and it is.
Very
It's super
little.
quiet. It is. You wouldn't even know it in that moment.
Yeah, sorry I missed all that.
That's
So
fine. That's fine.
what happened?
We were just talking about the moments in specific when Han and Leia are talking to each other on Endor, and how the music is so
Well,
low that you can hear
I
their conversation.
I kind of like the Luke reveal of finding out Leia's his sister a little
Yeah,
bit
and
more.
that too. Yeah,
But the look on his face, if you when you go back and watch it again at some point, Luke's face is like, wait, just oh no.
yeah. Thanks. He really does think about it in that moment, and you notice that's again. You're talking about score and music. That music is very soft and very quiet in that moment. They really wanted to focus on what Luke is thinking, what Leia's thinking, what the emotions, their facial reactions. It's a beautiful moment done by George Lucas, and I think the Rise of Skywalker. I hope really to see those kind of discussions happening between characters.
Mhm. I agree. Um, Again, the Luke and Leia moment on Endor itself is another great scene
Yeah,
where we kind of got a little bit of a similar kind of scene in The Last Jedi with Luke and Leia's last moments there,
yeah.
which we'll get more into that when we get to The Last Jedi. But did you guys do your make it or break it or?
Yeah, I did my make it and break it. Like mine basically was like have those moments where my break it is like don't play music so loud when people are trying to have a very in-depth conversation, because there are going to be some very important conversations that have to be had, whether it's Rey's lineage, whether it's Kylo Ren trying to figure out what his best path is. Like don't have the music so loud that it drains out what their thoughts and our connection with them in that moment. My make it in that case, knowing that that's my break it, is have the music low enough so that we can hear those conversations. I want to see Rey having a conversation with Kylo, much like The Last Jedi. I think Ryan Johnson and John Williams scored that perfectly in certain moments where they could talk and the fans could be in the theater watching them have those conversations and feel like you're there. That's the most important thing about Star Wars. You have to feel like you're there in that moment and
Mhm,
feel like you're part of that conversation. So that's my make it or break it. How about you, Sean?
mhm.
For me, for my break it, I think it has to be. I don't think we need like a Jabba the Hutt scene, or
I
I
agree.
don't because I don't think it's necessary. It's like I'm not a huge fan of the Jabba Hutt scene. Because it wasn't really necessary to the plot, and I hope Rise of Skywalker doesn't have that type of scene kind of
The
for
bib
the plot
Fortuna to
itself.
Salacious Crumb. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Like, yeah, I mean, I hope it doesn't. I don't think they're gonna have a scene like that. I
Okay.
mean,
They might.
but I hope they might. I mean, if they do, it'd probably be with Maz. I feel like it would be a scene
Or it
with
could
that,
be
but
the
not
reverse.
really.
It could be Kylo Ren doing something like that with the
Could be.
Knights of Ren.
Curious to see.
Maybe. For my make it, I think it has to be. Uh, I think it needs to. Like for the first ghosts, I think we
Mhm.
should have some, but I feel like they need to do it drastically different though from
Mhm.
the.
Ye-
From,
I can see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. It should be
Where they're
something different,
not
something new.
where they're not just sitting there and being like, "Oh, I'm a ghost."
like, well, I mean, that's what I liked about Yoda in the Last Jedi. It kind of he didn't just sit there. I mean, he kind of did, but he was moving around a
It
little.
gave an idea of what the Force Ghost can actually do, and not
And
just sit there.
Yeah,
and
you're saying,
I
Sean, a three-dimensional force ghost, something that actually has some weight to it.
yes, and I think it would be groundbreaking for CGI to do that too. Like it'd
Ooh,
be
the
different.
force ghost.
It'd be,
Yes.
but I feel like they got to play it safely if they do. So, I mean, that's kind of that is my make it, but it's also a little bit break it. But
Yeah.
I
what
can
about you,
understand
Andrew?
that. Make it, um, make it feel. It has to feel like there is something at stake. Like Return of the Jedi, everything felt like this had to be done now, or we're never gonna finish this war. with this, it has to feel like that. It has to feel like, oh shit, the Emperor is still alive. We have to kill him now before he sends his army or armada out there and destroys everything.
Yeah.
That's what
Break it.
That's what the Revenge of the Sith did, and that's what I really liked about it, because you were on your seat every moment, like since Order 66.
It's true.
Yeah. Break it if they make it too kid friendly.
Yeah.
It
Mm.
has to be, especially with the Emperor, it has to be terrifying. It
gotta
has
be
to be
terrifying.
scary.
Yeah.
It has to even make adults feel uneasy when they're seeing the Emperor again.
Mm.
Such a good point.
You can have light moments, but don't overdo it and make it too kid friendly.
Yeah, I mean, I think our first rumblings, of course, we're recording this the day after, the Rise of Skywalker blue carpet premiere that happened. A lot of the rumblings, a lot of the reviews that have already been out, people have said, again, kind of similar to Rogue One, be very careful what age group of children you bring to this. Be very aware, because there are some moments that I think it was in particular. Who said it? It wasn't Star Wars News. Oh, it was Star Wars Newsnet. It was our friend John Huey over there. He said in particular, he was like, there are some real terrifying moments in this film that you have to be aware of, and that's like what you said, Andrew. They got to do that, and I think that's kind of a little bit of my forewarning to people before a Thursday comes, is again, like, really check to see if your kid, I mean, with Palpatine in it, I think fans have a good idea, but just again, be aware that this is going to be dark, and this is going to be really terrifying at times, I would imagine.
There's also a PSA warning about epilepsy during the film.
Yeah.
Yes,
That came
very
out.
important.
That came
I
out
can
a few
see
weeks
exactly-
ago, or a month ago,
I
which
can
I
see
want to warn
exactly
people
where
on this
I can
episode.
see exactly where the epilepsy stuff could come in, where like Rey and Kylo are, and it's really like the lights are flashing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where I'm pretty sure it's force lightning, but still,
Just be very aware if
I
that's
mean,
something.
I hope they do something like the beginning, just in case. I mean, they didn't do that with the Incredibles, and that had a major one, which was a problem.
I think when like before it goes into the Lucasfilm logo, I think they might say something there or
I
something
wouldn't
like
be
that.
surprised, yeah.
Or
if
they could
it's
have,
not too drastic. Hopefully, it's not too drastic.
or they could have like the movie concession people say, "Hey, be cautious of this" or something like that.
They may address the crowd before they go in on opening night, and then have something more publicly released at some point. Yeah. Okay.
If they don't do it at our theater, we should probably say something.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Hey guys,
just gonna let you know. I know you bought these tickets and you just paid a little bit of money. I mean, those are those things, guys, that, I mean, again, be aware what age group you're bringing, and again, be aware of any physical.
PG-13. Yeah, PG-13 now can kind of.
It pushes the button. It pushes the button sometimes.
I think this is gonna push Star Wars PG-13 to its limit. Like Revenge of the Sith did it as far as it could go. I think this is gonna surpass that.
We're gonna be literally on the very edge.
How far in the future do you think we're gonna see a rated R Star Wars film?
It's a good question. Now that we're
rated R Star Wars stuff, I would probably see on Disney Plus. I don't think we'd see it in cinema.
Like kind of like a Netflix film, but for Disney Plus.
Yeah. The more adult oriented stuff is going on Hulu, which Disney owns anyway, so it would probably go on there.
Right. That's
then again they have The Simpsons on Disney Plus, so
yeah, it's just one of those things.
I would say 5-6 years we could see something more R-rated on Disney Plus.
Interesting.
What about you, Robin?
I've actually already said this before on a podcast. I don't see it happening until they're able to keep test marking stuff like Mandalorian, and keep pushing the gauntlet on things like Rogue One, where you do see a lot of I'm going to say it, Star Wars, like the war side
Yeah.
of it all. I think that until they really start test marketing that and really see how the audience reacts, I think this is going to be a great way of test marketing that. And I also think that The Mandalorian has already test marketed that. There are things that they don't show that happen in that TV series
Mhm.
that if they were to show it, then to be honest with you, and you want to put a rated R on it, you know what? That's fine with me. Absolutely. But I see just for starting off that market why they're doing it the way they are. So yeah, I give it a couple years and see. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I don't see it in the near future. More like I said, the far future. More than a couple years, I think. I think just to see how, like you said, Robin, how the Mandalorian is, and even the Obi-Wan, I think that's going to be one of the
Obi-Wan
most
may push it. Yeah.
the more darker. I think they're going to push that one for the. I think that's going to be the most dark we see in Star Wars. Just the mentality of Obi-Wan. I think it's going to be play a big
Yeah.
part of it.
It's gonna have a Logan feel to it, I think.
I could see that. I could see that. Yeah. Huh. I guess we'll wait and see.
Yep. At the time of recording this, we are pretty much 3 days away from the Rise of Skywalker.
Essentially a little bit more than 48 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that time is only getting slower. I feel like it's crawling now, and I'm like, no, stop.
Time
I
is
want it to go
crunching.
quicker.
And it, like we've been talking back and forth, it's going to be a different feeling kind of day.
Yeah.
Like we're all going to be hanging out and stuff, but it's going to, I don't know, how would you put it, Robin? Like,
Well, I think that and this is the one way that I look at it is that, I think we've all individually have experienced Star Wars during this new trilogy in different ways. Sean and I have pretty much been there for Force Awakens. We've been there for every Star Wars film up to this point through Last Jedi together. And I think yourself, Andrew, you've gone to the theater yourself probably many times with family, friends. I think we all do that too, is we want to experience it as a family and as a friendship. And I think the difference between this one, and I was talking about it a little bit last night on Rebel Scum podcast, is that this is probably the closest feeling that I would have had to being 26 and seeing Revenge of the Sith if I was that age at that time. For people of our generation, we're getting to experience what some did who remember the original trilogy and seeing Revenge of the Sith and thinking that it's going to be the last. I wasn't really old enough. I don't think any of us were really old enough to comprehend that.
no.
And now we are at that moment. And I think what's so different about Thursday, and whenever anybody sees it across this weekend, that's from our generation, that literally that age group of anywhere from like 22 to 30 who grew up and understood Star Wars through the prequels, is that we are having our moment this week where we have to live with the reality of this is the end of the Skywalker saga. This is the end of Star Wars within this part of our life. So I think that's why it seems so different, is because we're doing it we're going into this together, and we're going into this knowing that this is our Revenge of the Sith at 26 or 27 or up to 30 moment. I mean, that's how I see that. But
it feels like the end, and it is the end, but it's not the end, which is
it's
crazy
weird.
to think.
It is.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel real to me.
It's the end of the characters that we've spent 42 years being invested in.
Yeah, and it's how people felt at the end of Return of the Jedi. It's how that generation felt. The people who went to go see Star Wars in 1977 at the TCL Chinese Theater there in Los Angeles on that opening day, and then they see Return of the Jedi and they're like, "This is it. This is how this whole thing ends." All right, and then they didn't get until 1999. So that's what we're going through.
Well, that's a Star Wars fan. I feel like we just say there's a good future for us just because of the new projects coming out and just
more than in any other year.
Yeah. And I do want to say this. For those who are seeing Rise of Skywalker this weekend, if you end up not liking it, don't try and ruin it for others who are going to
Mhm.
try and see it and enjoy it.
I agree.
And those who are actively trying to spoil the movie for others who, when the movie isn't even out yet, who have no control over it, you are the what's wrong with the fandom.
Yeah.
I don't get how you.
They're not even fans at that point anymore.
No. I don't get how you get off on giving spoilers to those who just want to go and enjoy a movie for just wanting to escape reality, because reality sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, luckily, I've been able to stay away from stuff like that. But there's one of my friends, literally, someone messaged him sending him a picture of Palpatine in the movie.
I'm not even going to react to that because that just makes me so upset.
Yeah. And he's going to the marathon event of all the Star Wars movies leading up to Rise of Skywalker. So,
Boy. Oh, boy. Well, learning lesson. Learning lesson.
Mute everyone in your message box.
Right.
Let's just enjoy these last few days of the Skywalker trilogy to the end.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But unfortunately, it's that time we like to call plug time. Robin, where can the people find you across social media? Well, you might be going dark the next few days.
Actually, I think I'm probably going to go dark on my Twitter starting tomorrow. So I'll say it now on this podcast in particular. You guys can follow Brick City Blockade at www.brickcityblockade.com. That's where stuff will still be posted to, because I can avoid all spoilers on there, because I haven't really posted anything on there recently. So we can go over there and look at that stuff. Hey. You can also check out these audio review podcasts, our journey to episode 9 stuff over on iTunes and Spotify while you're waiting in line for 9 across these next couple of days. They will be posted nightly, so make sure to check those out. They'll go all the way into the weekend. I don't want to necessarily bunch them all up and give it to everybody, because there are people who still couldn't get tickets for opening night, so they're going to be waiting to go see it across the weekend. So stay tuned. They're going to be released all across the next 4 to 5 days, so please stay tuned and enjoy them. Also over on Twitter at Mr. Vogt Tweets for everything happening at the podcast and beyond that galaxy far, far away.
Sean?
You guys could follow me on Twitter, SeanMichaud1, Instagram at ItZoneZ, music at Bandcamp, SoundCloud, and Facebook. I don't go on Facebook, so I should probably...
You can
always say Messenger.
Force Ghost on Facebook. You can always find Force Ghost on Facebook.
I see. I'm more on Facebook Messenger, so you can still add me, talk to me if you want. But I don't go.
He's
I don't
on
go on
Force
Facebook
Book now.
Force.
Andrew.
What would that be? The Star Wars version of Facebook, or would that be something different?
It would be Fart Book.
All right, Andrew. What's your plug time?
Let's
get away from this monster.
I'm going to play it safe, and I am dark on social media.
I like it.
This week, do not follow me.
Wow.
And as we always say, may the Force be with you.
Be with you.
Always.
Stay clear, everyone.